3:42 a.m., the world woke up to a single post, a tweet, or rather a declaration that sent shockwaves across continents. Donald Trump, the former president of the United States, wrote, "The United States has successfully carried out a large-scale strike against Venezuela. President Nicolas Maduro and his wife have been captured and flown out of the country." In an instant, newsrooms erupted, alerts flooded phones, social media exploded, markets trembled, governments scrambled. Everyone asked the same question: is this real? Or is this just another bold claim in a world already teetering on the edge? The sky over Caracas was dark. Explosions shook the city. Sirens wailed through the streets. Citizens grabbed their phones, trying to record, to make sense of the chaos. The world watched through live streams and tweets, but nobody knew the full story. Imagine it. One social media post, and suddenly the fate of a nation, a continent, and perhaps the balance of power in the Western Hemisphere is in question. Some called it an early morning rumor. Others called it unprecedented. Intelligence analysts raced to confirm what was happening. Journalists scrambled to phone lines that went unanswered. And yet, the claim stood. The leader of Venezuela, captured. The question that gripped the world wasn't just about Maduro. It was bigger. Much bigger. Could this spark a full-scale conflict in Latin America? Would the United States face condemnation or war accusations? And most importantly, what does this mean for ordinary people from Caracas to New York, from oil markets to global diplomacy? Minutes passed. Hours passed. The world waited for verification. Governments issued cautious statements. Venezuela's official channels denounced the post as false and dangerous propaganda. Meanwhile, news outlets displayed grainy footage of explosions in the capital, and images of armed forces mobilizing filled the feeds. The internet became a battlefield of speculation. Was it a military operation? A bluff? Or something far more calculated, a strategic message to allies and rivals around the world? And here's the reality. Even if we don't yet know every detail, this single moment has already changed the conversation about power, politics, and the limits of influence in 2026. For those watching this unfold, there's no turning back. Every second brings new revelations, new rumors, new fears. The world is holding its breath because in one tweet, one announcement, the impossible suddenly seems possible. This isn't news. It's history in motion. And in the next few minutes, you're going to understand why the world may never look at Venezuela, the United States, or global power the same way again. Buckle up, because what comes next isn't just a story, it's a revelation. It started as a single sentence, 4 lines on a screen, but in the world of geopolitics, it was a bomb waiting to explode. Donald Trump's announcement wasn't just a tweet, it was a shockwave that raced across every continent in seconds. Stock markets blinked in disbelief. Newsrooms lit up like Christmas trees. Every journalist, analyst, and citizen asked the same question. Did this really happen? The words were simple, but their meaning? Earth-shattering. The United States has successfully carried out a large-scale strike against Venezuela. President Nicolas Maduro and his wife have been captured and flown out of the country. That's it. No footage, no press conference, no live coverage. Just text. Yet the impact was instantaneous. Across the globe, reactions poured in. In Washington, officials whispered in panic. How much was true? How much was strategic messaging? In Caracas, the streets erupted in fear and confusion. Military vehicles moved swiftly. Communications flickered. Citizens took shelter, unsure if the strike was real or exaggerated. On social media, the hashtag Venezuela explosions trended within minutes. Videos of distant fires, sirens, and fleeing citizens flooded feeds, some real, some staged, some misleading. And the analysts? They were stunned. A single social media post claiming a foreign leader's capture is almost unprecedented in modern history. The ripple effects weren't just political, they were financial, social, and psychological. Markets reacted first. Oil prices surged, Latin American stock exchanges wobbled, investors scrambled for information that didn't exist. Because in moments like this, uncertainty is more powerful than facts. Governments scrambled to respond. The White House released a cautious statement confirming only that operations were underway in Venezuela, avoiding the words capture or strike outright. Meanwhile, Venezuela's state media called the tweet false, provocative, and an act of aggression. They vowed retaliation and mobilized military forces. This is the strange power of the digital age. A single post from one person can create the illusion of a world-changing event, even before details emerge. And yet, every second that passed seemed to confirm it. Explosions were reported in Caracas. Fires were visible on live streams. Military helicopters flew low over the city. And here's the chilling part. Even as facts were unclear, the narrative had already taken hold. The world reacted not to verified information, but to the possibility that Trump was telling the truth. And in international affairs, possibility can be more dangerous than certainty. Think about it. For decades, conflicts escalated slowly. Diplomats negotiating, warnings sent, troops deployed. Today, one post can trigger global panic, influence markets, and force nations to act before anyone knows the truth. That's the power and the danger of a tweet. And it's why the world is now holding its breath, watching Caracas, watching Washington, watching every move. Because in one sentence, the rules of engagement changed forever. The question is no longer just, did it happen? The real question is, what happens next? While the world reacted to the tweet, Venezuela itself was in chaos. Caracas, the capital, was awake before dawn. The sky, dark and quiet just minutes earlier, was now pierced by low-flying aircraft and distant booms that shook the streets. Sirens screamed, dogs barked, and citizens ran for cover. Windows rattled. The smell of smoke drifted through neighborhoods. Eyewitnesses grabbed their phones. Some captured flashes of explosions in the distance, fires erupting near government buildings, and military convoys speeding toward the city center. Others recorded helicopters hovering ominously above. Social media filled with blurry, grainy footage, some authentic, some manipulated, but all contributing to the sense that something unprecedented was happening. Venezuela's government was quick to respond. Official channels called it a false claim of aggression and warned citizens not to panic. Military units were mobilized across the capital and border regions. Roads were blocked. People were urged to stay home. State media broadcast messages denouncing the U.S. and accusing it of illegal intervention. Meanwhile, independent journalists, international correspondents, and satellite images began to paint a clearer but still fragmented picture. Reports indicated explosions near Caracas, mostly in industrial and military zones, some power outages affecting key neighborhoods, military aircraft movements suggesting defensive maneuvers rather than offensive strikes. But confusion reigned. Some claimed the explosions were part of U.S. strikes. Others said they were drills or internal Venezuelan operations. In the fog of war, even verified sources were cautious, issuing statements like, "We cannot confirm the details, but activity is reported in Caracas." What was undeniable? The psychological impact. Citizens were terrified. Businesses closed early. Streets emptied. Even people far from the capital felt the tension as news outlets broadcast every new development in real time. Meanwhile, international media attempted to confirm the most shocking part of Trump's claim, Maduro's capture. But here, certainty was impossible. Venezuelan officials denied it. Satellite imagery and live coverage showed Maduro appearing in state media broadcasts, though some claimed it was pre-recorded footage. This is how modern conflicts unfold. Truth and fiction collide instantly, amplified by technology and social media. A single claim can ripple faster than actual events on the ground. Analysts explained that even if Maduro had been captured, the operation would involve multiple stages: airstrikes, ground support, intelligence gathering, and possibly negotiations behind the scenes. For now, every report was partial, incomplete, and sometimes contradictory. What's clear is that Caracas became a symbol of chaos in real time. Streets turned into waiting zones, citizens watched anxiously, and the world stared at screens trying to piece together the reality from rumors, videos, and government statements. The lesson is, in today's era, war doesn't wait for confirmation. One tweet, one explosion, one rumor can create a global story before anyone knows the truth. And in Venezuela, the truth is still unfolding. To understand why one tweet could ignite global shock, you need to understand Venezuela's history and why the United States has watched it so closely for decades. Venezuela isn't just another country in Latin America. It is one of the richest nations in oil reserves in the world, a country whose black gold has fueled economies, wars, and empires for over a century. Control over Venezuela isn't just about geography, it's about energy, influence, and power. Decades ago, U.S. governments considered Venezuela a key strategic ally, but when Hugo Chavez rose to power in 1999, everything changed. Chavez challenged U.S. influence openly, nationalized oil industries, and aligned Venezuela with countries the U.S. considered adversaries: Cuba, Iran, and later, Russia. When Nicolás Maduro took power after Chavez, the tensions didn't disappear, they intensified. Sanctions, economic blockades, and international pressure became daily realities. The United States accused Maduro's government of corruption, human rights abuses, and running a narco state. Venezuela, in turn, accused Washington of trying to engineer regime change through covert operations, media campaigns, and economic warfare. This conflict isn't new. It's decades in the making, rooted in ideology, oil, and geopolitics. Venezuela became a chessboard where energy wealth meets political ambition. Every move from Caracas was monitored, analyzed, and sometimes undermined by Washington. And let's not forget geography. Venezuela sits near strategic shipping routes and the Caribbean Basin, a region where the U.S. maintains immense military presence. Any instability there can ripple through trade, energy, and regional security. That's why every headline from Caracas matters, not just to Venezuelans, but to the entire world. Then came recent years. Escalating sanctions, intercepted oil shipments, and accusations of narco-trafficking involving Maduro's government. The United States built a pattern of pressure and surveillance, with special forces, intelligence operations, and naval deployments increasingly visible near Venezuelan waters. So when Trump announced the strike, it wasn't just a random act. It was the climax of decades of tension, a world stage confrontation where oil, ideology, and power collide. Yet, this is also a story of human cost. Millions of Venezuelans have suffered from economic collapse, shortages, and political instability. Their country has been the center of global strategies while they live through uncertainty, fear, and scarcity. Every military action, every claim, every rumor affects not just leaders, but ordinary families trying to survive. This is why the tweet hits so hard. Venezuela is more than a location, it's a symbol of energy wealth, defiance, and geopolitical friction. Capturing its leader, even as a claim, sends a signal. Power can be exerted instantly, and consequences ripple worldwide. And make no mistake, The world is watching. Latin American countries are taking sides, global powers are analyzing the implications, and citizens, from Caracas to Washington, are trying to understand how history, oil, and politics collided in a single explosive moment. In short, Venezuela isn't just a country, it's a geopolitical hotspot, a prize, and a warning. And right now, it is the center of the storm that could reshape the Americas and perhaps the world. Why this moment? Why now? That is the question on everyone's mind. A single tweet announcing the capture of Venezuela's leader may seem sudden, but nothing in geopolitics happens by accident. Timing is everything. On the surface, the world is already tense. Global conflicts, energy crises, and shifting alliances dominate headlines. Latin America has been a region of simmering tension for years, with countries watching Venezuela closely. And in Washington, political calculations are always at play. For the United States, the message is clear. Power can be exerted decisively, instantly, and publicly. Trump's tweet wasn't just about Maduro. It was about signaling strength, showing control, and demonstrating that the U.S. can act on intelligence and military capabilities without delay. Strategically, this operation, or at least the claim of it, serves multiple purposes. Domestic politics, high-profile actions create narratives of decisive leadership. They show the world and voters that America is capable of acting where others hesitate. Global signaling, allies and adversaries alike are forced to reconsider. Russia, China, and Iran now see that the U.S. is willing to engage in bold operations in the Western Hemisphere. Deterrence and influence, the capture of Maduro, real or claimed, sends a warning to other leaders in the region. Cooperation with the United States is rewarded, defiance may be punished. But there's more. The timing coincides with growing energy concerns. Venezuela sits on the largest proven oil reserves outside the Middle East. Any disruption, real or perceived, affects energy markets, trade flows, and geopolitical leverage. A single announcement can send shockwaves through oil prices, inflation, and global supply chains. And let's not forget the human element. Conflict escalates in moments of opportunity. Military planners often act when rivals are distracted, governments are in transition, or global attention is focused elsewhere. Whether Maduro's capture was actual or a tactical message, the timing maximizes psychological impact. In addition, technology has changed the rules of engagement. Social media, live streaming, and satellite imagery mean that the world can witness and react to events in real time. One carefully timed tweet can create instant global panic, market fluctuation, and diplomatic pressure. Yet the timing also carries risk. Escalating tensions in Venezuela could provoke retaliation, draw in regional allies, or trigger unforeseen crises. Every second counts. Every reaction matters. The stakes are high, and the consequences could last decades. For ordinary citizens, the timing is terrifying. Streets may fill with uncertainty, families face disruption, and markets fluctuate in real time. But for governments, it's a calculated game of strategy, power projection, and messaging. The world is not just watching, it is participating in a real-time experiment of influence and control. So, when you ask, why now? The answer is clear, because timing amplifies impact, because the world is watching and perception is just as powerful as reality. Because a single moment, a single announcement can reshape alliances, economies, and the course of history. In the next section, we'll explore the global consequences, because what happens in Venezuela doesn't stay in Venezuela. It spreads across continents, markets, and governments, touching everyone, whether they know it or not. The shockwave from Venezuela didn't stop at its borders. In today's interconnected world, every action echoes globally, and this one echoed louder than almost anything in recent memory. First, consider energy markets. Venezuela holds the largest proven oil reserves outside the Middle East. Even rumors of a strike, explosions, or leadership capture can trigger panic in global oil markets. Prices surged within hours, refineries adjusted output, investors scrambled. Countries dependent on Venezuelan oil, from Europe to Asia, suddenly faced uncertainty. In seconds, a geopolitical event turned into a financial earthquake. Next, the regional fallout. Latin America watched closely. Allies of Venezuela expressed outrage, condemning the attack as an illegal intervention. Neighboring nations mobilized to protect their borders. Diplomatic channels flared with emergency calls. The Caribbean, historically a region of U.S. influence, suddenly became a pressure cooker of tension and uncertainty. And it didn't stop there. Global powers were watching. Russia, a longtime ally of Maduro, criticized the U.S. publicly, calling the strike an aggressive violation of international law. China, with investments in Venezuelan oil and infrastructure, demanded calm and warned against unilateral action. Every statement, every condemnation added layers of complexity to an already tense situation. Economically, this is not a localized event. Uncertainty in Venezuela ripples across stock markets, currency values, and trade flows. Companies with operations in Latin America reassess risk. Energy-dependent nations brace for supply disruptions. Even insurance markets are adjusting premiums for political risk. One tweet, one explosion, one rumor, and global economies shift in response. The social and psychological impact is also profound. People around the world are consuming live updates, analyzing satellite images, and trying to distinguish fact from fiction. In a hyper-connected era, perception can be just as influential as reality. Citizens, investors, and leaders alike are caught in a real-time feedback loop of fear, speculation, and strategic decision-making. And let's not forget the military implications. The U.S.'s actions, real or claimed, signal to every government and military in the Western Hemisphere that it can act swiftly and decisively. Regional powers must reconsider alliances, defenses, and contingency plans. The strike, or even the announcement, reshapes strategic calculations across continents. But the consequences don't end with power and markets. There's a human dimension. Venezuelans face uncertainty, fear, and disruption. Families struggle with electricity outages, shortages, and the threat of escalating violence. Refugees and migrants may increase as tensions rise. History shows that geopolitical conflicts, even short-term ones, have long-lasting social consequences. In short, Venezuela is no longer just a country in crisis, it is a global epicenter. One strike, one tweet, and the ramifications are felt across energy markets, diplomacy, security, and human lives. The world is watching, reacting, and adjusting in real time, and the ripples may continue long after the explosions fade from the news. In the final section, we'll explore what happens next, the possible scenarios, and what this all means for the world and for you. Stay with us, because history is unfolding, and the next moves will determine whether this storm escalates or subsides. The tweet has been sent, the explosions have been heard, the world is watching. But now, the real question emerges. What happens next? No one knows for certain. In the next 72 hours, days, or even weeks, the actions taken or not taken by governments, militaries, and global powers will determine whether this becomes a brief moment in history or the beginning of something far more significant. Several scenarios are possible. De-escalation, the situation could stabilize. Maduro remains in power, the U.S. clarifies its intentions, and diplomatic channels calm the tensions. In this case, the tweet is remembered as a dramatic moment, a glimpse of power projection, but nothing more. Partial disruption. Some key areas in Venezuela remain unstable. Maduro's government may be weakened but not removed. Sanctions and diplomatic pressure intensify. International organizations intervene, mediating between conflicting sides. The country becomes a hotspot of uncertainty, affecting oil markets and regional security for months. Full escalation. In the worst-case scenario, the operation triggers armed conflict. Allies of Venezuela, regional powers, or global rivals may intervene. Energy markets could spiral. Refugees and humanitarian crises could grow exponentially. The world could face a geopolitical confrontation not seen in decades. Even without escalation, the implications are profound. Energy markets will remain volatile, regional politics will shift, and every world leader will be rethinking strategy. One tweet, one post, One single announcement has already changed calculations in Washington, Moscow, Beijing, and Caracas. For ordinary citizens, the consequences are immediate. People in Venezuela live with uncertainty, fear, and disruption. Families brace for power outages, shortages, and possible displacement. People around the globe experience the shockwaves through news, social media, and financial markets. The ripple effect touches everyone, whether directly or indirectly. So, what should we take away from all of this? First, the world is faster, more connected, and more fragile than ever before. Information travels instantly. Perception becomes reality in moments, and one bold statement can have consequences that span continents. Second, history is happening before our eyes. Every explosion, every tweet, every response is shaping the course of the future. Watching carefully, analyzing critically, and understanding the bigger picture is not just for politicians or analysts, it's for all of us. Finally, this is not the end. The situation is evolving. More information will come, more decisions will be made. And one thing is certain, the story is far from over. If you want to stay informed, understand what's really happening, and see history unfold in real time, here's what you need to do. Subscribe now to this channel for real-time updates and expert analysis. Hit the notification bell so you never miss a critical development. Comment below with your thoughts. Do you think this will escalate or de-escalate? And share this video with friends and family, because understanding global events is not just news, it's survival. The world is watching Venezuela. The world is watching the United States. And now you are watching history in motion. Stay alert, stay informed, and remember, in moments like these, knowledge is power.